My name is Melisa Valdovinos. My pronouns are they, she. A first generation Mexican, and my parents are dad's from the state of Jalisco, and my mom was born in Nayarit, but she grew up in Puerto Vallarta. I identify as a lesbian and I identify as non-binary. Two identities that are very close and near and dear to me. I'm also an educator. I love film photography. I love art, and I also just really love being Latina and being queer and being unapologetically myself. I am a student affairs professional, work in higher education with college students. I chose this profession because when I was in undergrad, I loved working in my cultural center, and it was a Latinx identifying cultural center. And for me, it was something that I never experienced being in a cultural center like that before. I find cultural centers to be really important because they are the heartbeat of every institution. They were established because of the ethnic studies movement that happened within like the 60s and 70s. And I feel like they give students a purpose and a place where they can find their communities and where they can be authentically themselves. And I feel like they also retain students as well to stay within institutions and to graduate and to pursue whatever profession they like. So because of other coordinators and because of other folks that I met within these culture centers, they're the ones that motivated me and inspired me to combine the two things that I love, which is working with students and also working within academia without having to be a professor. I remember my students talking about how it's really rare for a queer or like a non-binary lesbian like myself who is Mexican American to be in positions like this. Even just getting a master's, having that was such a eye-opening experience for them. Again, someone like myself is not in leadership positions, and it's interesting because in higher education we talk about inclusivity, we talk about intersectionality, we talk about social justice, but in a lot of our spaces it's still so one-dimensional. And so with myself being Latina and non-binary and a lesbian, it was somewhat groundbreaking for me to be in that position. Ways that I'm breaking barriers is just existing in these cultural centers, and it's mentoring students, inspiring them to pursue whatever profession they want to do. I got into my field because I wanted to radicalize it. I wanted to change it. I still do, but there's been some barriers lately, and even just with politically what's going on and the ways that we navigate conversations about within a genocide that's happening in other different states, and even just like not even just with one country, but in many other countries as well. I think people are afraid and to speak truly and thoughtfully about what's happening. I just advise folks to just still do it, to not be put into a box, to still live authentically and to work authentically in student affairs, because folks like myself are needed. Like, we kind of have to stand our ground and to resist and to continue this fight, because like we still need to exist in there and work hard and be in those spaces, even if it's hard. People like ourselves that are radical and that want to make those changes to happen, like we deserve a seat at the table in a sense, and we deserve to be there, and we deserve to exist there and work there. So for me, Latine Heritage Month means that it's a time for us to learn, to exist, to celebrate the things that make us Latine. Also a time for us to learn about different cultures, different identities within the Latina community, because we're all expansive, we're multicultural, we're multi-ethnic. We have so many intersection identities, and I'd like to see more of Latine Heritage Month, so that we celebrate communities that are not just Mexican communities. I think that's something that I loved doing in my previous work within cultural centers, is that I really wanted to highlight, and I think I still want to continue to highlight other Latina communities, because I know that we're so Mexican centric here, but there is a large community of like Central American folks, South American folks, Caribbean folks, and I think it's very important to highlight those and highlight the ways that their history has changed us, and even just how the US has like severely like impacted like those communities as well. I feel like Latine Heritage Month, it's really important to emphasize and talk about our history as well, and not just like the history that happens in the US, but giving context of like history that happens in South America, within Central America, the Caribbean. I think for myself, I became closer to my Latine identity because of learning about different movements. I want folks to know that Latine, like folks like ourselves, like we're innovators, like we're scientists, we're artists, we're musicians, we're educators, we're so many different things. but I think sometimes we're put into this box of that, of like the chistes of like, we only love like concha and spicy foods and hot Cheetos, and like that's all we kind of are to like the media. And I feel like we always are just like leaning into that, but I again, like, we're so much more expansive than that. It's such a yes or no whether I feel supported within the queer Latina community. I think the queer community, especially Latina folks that I've been able to befriend and build community with, has been really beautiful. It's saved me. It's given me a lot of purpose, and it's given me. They're kind of like my home, my chosen family, and it's been really wonderful. But I feel like folks still don't get it. Of being queer and Latina, especially in spaces, again, like I mentioned, within education, within within film, within other different things as well. I think that there's still so much work that we can do. I feel like queer spaces within even just like LA are still so white-centered, white-centric, Eurocentric, and I feel like that's still such a disservice. Wish there was still more spaces for us to exist. There are spaces being created, but they're only like one night only type of things. It's still such a beautiful place to be queer. It's such a vibrant place to be gender expansive and non-binary and trans, and there's no other place that I would want to be myself in LA. Just keep going, keep existing authentically as yourself. So just keep going, keep exploring. There's no limitation. Supportive, lean into your own intersectional identities, lean into being being multicultural, being multi-ethnic, but also study what you want to study, exist however you want to exist, because we only have one life to exist. I know that we think about our parents a lot, and I think we think about what others, like how they might perceive us, but don't think about that, because you're only just limiting yourself. And I wouldn't want Latina folks to, like, especially queer, trans Latina folks, to limit themselves.